Hey everybody, happy Friday afternoon, 3:30 on the East Coast. So good people in Florida and Ontario. It's 4:30 if you're in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Or if you're in Newfoundland, it's 5 o'clock and you've stuck around. You're on your way home, but you stuck around. If you're out here on the West Coast, it's 12 o'clock. No, 12:30, right?
12:30.
12:30. And here we go. It's a coaching session. So we take down the set, leave up all the equipment because we don't feel like putting it away because we're lazy. And we hang out with you all across North America, executive leaders in the public works sector. We just got done meeting a little while ago, a couple hours ago, with your mid-level leaders. It was a lively conversation. A lot of good questions, meaningful questions, and frankly, questions that spoke to culture, questions that spoke to environment. When I say environment, I mean the DNA of your department. It was very good, actually. And a couple of questions around, hey, how do I get my boss to be more involved in this program? Which I thought was kind of interesting, right? How do I get my boss to be more involved in the program? My boss hasn't done this assignment. My boss hasn't done that assignment. I'm assuming you're the bosses. Now, I'm not saying all of you haven't done your assignments, but if you're one of those people, you might want to realize that your people are watching. They're doing the program and wondering why those above them are not. I thought that was interesting. As always, we take this time to talk to you and listen to you and answer your questions. I'm always joined by our lovely boss, Gina Hill. There she is. Hi, Gina.
Hello, how are you?
How are you?
Good.
Gina's
Good.
coming to us from Paris today. No, she's not in Paris. You wish you were in Paris?
Ontario? Yeah.
Paris, Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
I always
Texas?
tell my kids I just got back from London and Paris. And they say, wow, and I say Ontario. Although that's a wow, it's not a bad thing, right? Make it sound like it's bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad. All right, so we got to take your questions. How can we get you? How can you submit your questions? Gina at thechangingpoint.com. Gina at thechangingpoint.com. You can put your comments in the chat box. It says right there, as it says right there, put it in the chat box. You can put it up on Facebook, or, and this seems to be the preferred method amongst everybody participating this time around, texting Gina. Everybody wants to text Gina. Nobody ever texts me.
We got El Cerrito and Alameda in the house tuning in right now.
Alameda County Coliseum. Alameda County?
Yeah. Alameda,
Really?
California.
Oh.
Yeah.
Alameda County Coliseum, that's where the Raiders play.
Oh.
Anyways, and you said who else was in there?
El Cerrito. Mm-hmm.
We always see their logo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So glad you're all here, and I'm sure Baytown is here, and Orlando is here, and Fredericton, as I mentioned a moment ago, and Frisco, and South Bend, Indiana, and all the rest. Thank you for joining us. All right, put in your questions. Now remember, the purpose of this hour is to give you an opportunity to have digested some of the information and then just pepper me with questions. Now the last session, actually the emerging leader session, both times we've done coaching sessions, has been a riot. I mean, it's been one question after another, just bam, 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 bam. And if I remember the last time we all got together, there wasn't as many questions. So I encourage you, ask your questions. Now I know we have a couple of questions that came in advance. Now remember, we're talking about agent of change. The agent of change understands, demonstrates, and exerts influence by building trusting relationships, through trusting relationships to act as a catalyst for change. What does that mean? That the agent of change, today's effective leader, is an agent of change. And they get it. They get what's going on today. They get that they're not going to be able to just come in and wave their title and get people to snap to. That that's not going to work. But what is going to work is be able to identify people of influence and then build trusting relationships with them, and then through those trusting relationships be able to exert influence to move people to change. If you recall the last time we were together, I tried to make the case that the only way people are going to change today is one, they trust you. Or two, they trust the process you have created or facilitated the creation of. Or three, they trust the destination that you're leading them to. Now you're the executive leader. or you're one of the executive leaders. And so the trust that they have in you is paramount. When people don't trust the process, they get grumpy. I'm going to just let that settle for just a minute. Let's let it settle. When people don't trust the process, they get agitated. And there's a lot of consternation when people don't trust the process. And what's interesting is people are starting to not trust the process. Have you been watching the news lately, Jeff? People don't trust the process. And that's not a commentary, a political commentary. That's just a general social observation. People don't trust the process. And because people don't trust the process, they get agitated. And if people don't trust the people administering the process, they even get more agitated. So what does that mean for us internally within our organization? You got to build trust. People trust the individuals implementing change or overseeing things. People trust the process in which things are being run, or people trust the destination that you are advocating for them to go to. If they trust one or more of those things, you got a chance for change. If they trust all three, they're in. They're in. Now, over the last couple weeks, we've talked about a couple things. One, we talked about this week how to implement change within a group setting. I want to spend a little bit of time today, because I'd like to talk about it, about how do we implement change. That was within your four walls group setting. I sent that email out at the beginning of the week. I want to talk a little bit today about how do you help implement change amongst people of influence in your community. How do you get the people of your community or your region or your province or your state, how do you get them to better understand the importance of public works? And how do we advocate for the resources necessary for public works? And so we'll take some time to talk about that. So questions can come in via text, questions can come in via Facebook, questions can come in via, there's text, questions can come in via email, questions can come in via the chat box. Do we have any questions yet?
We do. We had one that came in earlier.
Okay, go ahead.
How do I implement change? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. How do I implement change in an employee who's been there longer than me and is very set in their ways?
How do I implement change with someone that's been there longer than me and their inertia has taken hold? Well, number one, don't come in there and start flashing your title. Don't come in there, and Gina knows I'm fond of this expression, don't come in there trying to be the bull in the woods. Don't come in trying to be the bull in the woods. You know where that movie, you know what movie that's from?
What?
That's from McClintock. That's from McClintock. John Wayne. Bull of the woods. Don't come in trying to be the bull of the woods. Because all that person is going to do is this. They're going to dig their heels in the ground and say, look, I was here long before you came, and I'll probably be here long after you're gone. If you want to take me on, come with it. So that's not going to work. So initially what I would do is just work to build a trusting relationship. 80% listening, 20% talking, asking open-ended questions to better understand. Remember, nothing more powerful than a person feeling understood. It's interesting that I had this exact same situation. I got a job where all of a sudden I was overseeing about 1,000 people. There was an individual who thought they should have that job, who had been in the business in that sector longer than I had been alive. Think about that. Longer than I had been alive. That's how much institutional knowledge they had. And they had been within that organization much longer than I had been there. And they were not happy about me leapfrogging over them to get the job. So I knew that I had to build some kind of bridge with this person. And basically what I did was, in all matters that were not jugular, I let them have a sense that they were in charge. I deferred to them as the senior guru. That's what I kept telling them, that they were my Joe Montana. This was back when Joe Montana was in the sunset of his career. I said, you're my Joe Montana. you're going to teach me, a rookie, how to go. And so I gave him his ego. I let him have his ego. Now, there were times when I said no. There were times where I had to exert my authority and just say, we're not doing that. Duly noted, but we're not going in that direction. But whenever possible, I let him have his space. I let him carve out his space. I didn't need to constrict him or restrict him. Now, I was very clear the first time that he started saying things and doing things that I thought were outside of what we had mutually agreed upon. I put that back in space very quickly, brought that back in alignment. But whenever possible, I let him have his ego. I let him have his space. So in this specific instance, if I get the question right, the individual, whoever asked the question, you got this person that's stuck in their ways, been there a while, maybe longer than you, and you got to get them turned around. You got to go build a trusting relationship with them. You have to go listen more, talk less, and see what their drivers are, their motivators are, and what any attitudinal barriers might be. Now, I'm not going to go any further into that except to say this. Next week, I'm going to post a video that we've just actually gone through some of the material with your emerging leaders. And it speaks specifically to individual performance improvement. How do we improve the performance of individuals? And I think much of it will answer the question that you just asked. Now, it is longer. It's about almost an hour in length. So this is where that 15-minute-a-day strategy comes into play, where you take 15 minutes a day to go through the information and the material. But basically, it revolves around it's a basic premise that it revolves around. That there's only 3 reasons why employees don't perform. They don't know the expectations, they don't have the training or tools, or they think they have a choice. And that is what it boils down to. And I'm not going to go into a big argument with you about it, but that's it. I want you to watch the video, though, and it'll give you some really good tips of what to do in that dynamic that Gina just read about. But ultimately, what it has to do with is building trust with that individual, letting them have their ego in space, and then finding how you can bring them in and they can come into alignment with the direction and vision that you have. If they choose not to do that, then in that video I mentioned, I'll give you some steps that you can take to bring them back into alignment or to coach them out. One of the two. Okay, next.
Next. My issue is how to communicate. The process of communication is my struggle.
Okay, very good. Now, what's even more interesting about that is that we have a video for that, where we talk about Aristotle. Jeff? We talk about Aristotle and his method or process for communication. And then I add to it. But basically, the process for communication, I'm going to give you a quick overview, and I'll post that video for you. It's actually very good, not just because we did it, but it's very good. Since the time of Aristotle, people have been trying to figure out the process of communication. And Aristotle was very simplistic in his thoughts. He said that there was a sender, there was a message, there was a receiver. Sender, message, receiver. Sender, message, receiver. Now, when I looked at that, here's what I said. I said, Aristotle, you're one of the smartest guys that ever lived. However, I find your communication process to be lacking. Yes, I was arrogant enough to say that Aristotle's communication methods were lacking. No short of ego here. Got a whole bunch of self-validation going on. I thought there was some things missing in that. And what I think is missing when we talk about process, and that we have to take into consideration when communicating either with individuals or groups in the 21st century, is this. Yes, there is a sender. You. There is a message. Absolutely. There is a conduit. Because in today's day and age, there's multiple conduits that I could send that message through, and which one would be best. Then there is a receiver, no doubt. Then there is an understanding, and then there is an impact. That's the process, the steps of communication. Now, in that video that I just mentioned, we'll unpack that to a greater degree, but let me just do a really quick. Sender. What's your communication style? Remember, we talked about it before. Are you a fact-based communicator, a value-based communicator, emotion-based communicator, or a belief-based communicator? So before I'm going to communicate with an individual or a group, I got to think to myself, what's my communication style? And am I willing to bend mine to theirs? Secondly, the message. What is my message? What is my desired outcome for this conversation? And whether that's, what's my desired outcome from this phone call? What's my desired outcome from this public meeting? What's my desired outcome from this broadcast? What's my desired outcome from when I go have that potentially contentious conversation with somebody? So before I can develop the message, I have to know what my outcome is. So first, I'm the sender. What's my communication style? Secondly, the message. And what's my desired outcome? Once I know what my desired outcome, then the questions are pretty easy. How should I position that? When should I say it? Where should I say it? What's the format I should say it in? Which takes us to our next one, the conduit that we communicated through. Here, like, Gina, I'm sure you've seen this. When you were working in big business, because you used to work in big business, somebody does something wrong. One individual does something wrong. And then we send out a memo to everybody, reminding them, don't do it like that. Right. You've seen that. You probably had. And when that happened to you, how did you feel?
I confused.
Like, why are you sending it?
Yeah, right.
So that's not the appropriate conduit of communication. That's not the appropriate conduit of communication. The appropriate conduit of communication is go talk to that person, not send out a blanket to everyone.
It's an easy way out.
It is the easy way out. Definitely the easy way out. So what's the best conduit? Is the best conduit to have a face-to-face conversation? Is the best conduit to put it in writing on a piece of paper? Is the best conduit to send it virtually? How many times in our personal lives have we sent something via text that had no business being sent via text? And then we get into a 120 character argument where the nuances, the intonation is lost, and it turns into a big whatever. That conduit question is important because for me to have the impact that I want, I could change my communication style. I could have a perfect message. My desired outcome is clear. I know how I'm going to say it. I know when I'm going to say it. But then if I pick the wrong vehicle to say it through, it gets lost in translation. Then the receiver. I've got to think to myself, when I walk into that public meeting, who are the stakeholders I'm dealing with? What's their communication style? Or what's been the environment, or what's been the past history of communications that we've had? What can I expect? And how can I prepare for what I expect? So the receiver must be taken into consideration. You got a group of employees that haven't had a raise in 5 years, 3 years their wages have been frozen, and then 2 years, the last 2 years they've gotten 1%, let's say. And you're about to walk in and drop a big change on them. They might not cheer. And if they do cheer, it'll be a cheer you're not excited for. So I got to take that, where their heart set, where their mindset is before I come in, because that might determine the conduit I pick. I might go do some one-on-one or small group chatting rather than just a big blanket statement or a big blanket memo or email. So I have to take the receiver. Then, only 2 more to go now. How am I going to check for understanding? So to the guy or gal that sent in that question, how am I going to check for understanding? What's going to be the mechanism? See, I can know my communication style. I can have my message well laid out, know exactly what my desired outcome is. I can push it through what I think is the appropriate conduit. I can take into consideration my receiver and what their communication style is, what past history of the relationship is, and accommodate accordingly. But if I don't check to see if they got it, what good does it do? So I must check for understanding. And then finally, was the impact that I hoped for realized? And those 2 pieces, I think, get lost. And I think they get lost a lot. Because we send out, we push information out. Push. And then we wonder why we don't get the impact that we wanted. And it's probably in understanding. And understanding probably comes because we picked the wrong, didn't happen because we picked the wrong conduit, or the wrong message, or the wrong time, or the wrong place, or the wrong sender. Understanding. So, how could you check for understanding? Well, you could go talk to people, ask open-ended questions. You could send out a survey, which we just asked you to send out a survey a little while ago, a couple days ago, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of ways you could check for understanding. Now, I just gave you an 8-minute, what was that, 5-minute? I just gave you a 5-minute, but there's a 45-minute video that we'll post on effective interpersonal communication. It's very good. It's very good. And when you start to think of those things, what happens is, as an executive leader, you stop the bus and say, whoa, wait a minute. Before we announce that thing, let's think this through this process. Let's make sure we got our ducks in a row in this process. Now, does that eliminate poor communication in a group setting? No, but it mitigates the risk. Does that eliminate you being misconstrued or misunderstood? No, but it mitigates the risk when you think of each one of those things before the communication happens. All right, do you think that answered that adequately?
I think so. I mean, it was a broad question, so yeah. And you can always contact Ian personally via email to expand on anything he talks about here.
Yeah, that's very true. You can just email me you get the emails from me.
Right.
All you have to do is hit reply.
Reply.
Hit reply. All right. Next. What's the next question?
Okay. One of the ways I try and build trusting relationships is ongoing weekly one-on-one meetings with all my direct reports.
Excellent.
where they get to drive the agenda. For the most part. Do you think regular weekly one-on-one meetings are an important method for building this trust?
Yes, and especially the way you're doing it.
Yeah.
So, who was that? Can we say his name?
No, Ustreamer.
Oh, it's just in the Ustream.
It's in the chat box.
Well, very good, Mr. Chatbox 67392, whatever you were. No, that's perfect. But I think it is a piece, a big piece, but it is a piece of building the trusting relationship. So let's go through the comprehensive, robust model. So 1, you got to give them an anonymous way to give you feedback, your direct reports. That was that 3-question survey, which I'm sure we'll get to in a minute. 3-question survey. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Suggestions for my improvement. If you could send me back to school, what class would you make me take? Why? Because some people will feel comfortable telling you what they think without fear of ramification. Then what you're doing, which is the one-on-one. Hey, you drive the agenda. I'm here to support you. It's your undivided time with me, the executive leader. What do you want to talk about? That's awesome. Awesome. But then there's another piece. There has to be a time when the executive leader casts the vision. So maybe that's at the beginning of every year, you cast the vision. And then you have quarterly check-ins on how you're doing, how they are doing in reaching the vision. Now look at the comprehensive nature of that. 1, somebody can give you feedback anonymously. So if there is a dirty little story out there, you'll hear about it. Or if there is some kind of mistake you made that no one's willing to tell to your face, you'll hear about it. Then you give them face-to-face time, undivided attention. It's your time. 3rd, you're casting the vision regularly. So I cast the vision, check for understanding with the survey one-on-one. Cast the vision, check for understanding, survey one-on-one. It's all 3 of those put together, awesome. Now, if you only had time to do one, do the one-on-ones. If you only had time or energy to do one, do the one-on-one. Great way to build trust, especially if what you're saying is true. You're letting them drive the agenda. And if you're letting them drive the agenda around their own personal needs and development, awesome, awesome, awesome. Great, great work. Isn't that great? That's very good.
It is.
It's very good.
And
Okay.
I've got a name for you.
Who was it?
Who did it? Liam Garland in City of Alameda.
City of Alameda. Liam, my main man. Liam, my name is Ian, and you and I have Scotch-Irish. Is Liam Scotch-Irish? What do you think, Jeff? Irish? Gaelic? My name is Ian Andrew, Liam, and you and I are brothers from another mother. Right. Anyways, that's awesome, Liam. Well done. And to all of you, giving your direct reports some undivided time and attention will save you a lot of crisis communication. Let me run on this rabbit trail real quick. you get hit by your direct reports. Yeah, I need to talk to you. 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 You ever had that happen, Gina?
Yeah.
Like recently?
Yeah.
Like an hour ago. I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying you can eliminate that, but you can start to mitigate that with these one-on-ones. Well, how's that? When a person knows that they're going to get your, and can trust that they're going to get your undivided attention in 4 days, it's not as urgent. It's not as urgent. And when they see on the calendar that they get you undivided attention once every 4 weeks, and that they're meaningful conversations where you're really listening, paying attention, and taking action, all of a sudden what is seemingly a crisis dissipates because they know they're going to see you. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to eliminate that. I need to see you. But it lessens it significantly. So again, Liam, great job. Well done. Okay, next.
Okay, we got an email.
Email question. Go.
It says, I sent out the survey to my direct reports, and I haven't gotten anything back yet. I'm sure that means something, but I don't know what.
Well, it could mean a couple of things. So I don't know your situation. I don't know who you are. I don't know what department you're from. So I'm going to paint with a very broad brush of what it could mean. One, it could mean that people don't think you're serious. Not good, not bad, not right, just that you're not serious. Two, it could mean that people don't trust the process. That they're going to get somehow, ambushed. That's the word. That they're going to get ambushed. Now that's serious. How could you overcome those? I would circle back to everybody and say the following. I'm trying to get better. I want to be a better leader for all of you. I want to improve. But I know that I have some blind spots. I know that I can't see everything. And I know that the only way for me to get better is for everyone to give me feedback. So this is something important to me. I'm going to send it out again. And I hope you'll take a few minutes to give me feedback so I can get better. In most instances, if you were to do that, you'll get more response. So it might be those two things. But it also might be this. People are just busy. People are just busy. Or it might be this. Did you pick the right conduit? Did you say, okay, everybody fill out this form and put it under my desk? And people are like, well, I got to print it out, and then I got to sit down and write it down. And, So maybe you need to send it out, SurveyMonkey or Google Apps survey. It takes 2 seconds, it's free, and you send out a link, and then you get a lot more participation. So going back to that communication process, you might want to check the conduit you're using. And then finally, they might just not understand. Think about it. That's kind of on you. If you've never done anything like this before, if your department or you have never done any kind of surveying, never done any kind of, pulse check of the department, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere you send out this survey, people just might not understand. So I'm not sure which one of those things it is. Take a step and look at what it could be. But ultimately the way to fix the best medicine that I would apply that might fix whatever it is this. Hey everybody, I sent out a survey, I got no responses. Let me explain to you why I'm doing it. Let me explain to you how it's going to be used, and let me explain to you what you can expect from me in the future. I'm doing it because I want to get better. I know I'm not as good as I could be, and I want to get better, and I need your insight and wisdom to help make me better. It's going to be used. I'm going to take it and listen to Ian, and he's going to give me some insight on what each answer, what the trends could mean, and then I'm going to set a commitment. I'm going to pick something out of the feedback you give me and set a commitment and work hard at being better at that. And finally, you can expect me to be better. What you can expect from all this, I'm going to try to get better, and you're going to see it. And then in 90 days, 120 days, I'm going to send it out again. And this is going to be an ongoing process for you to be able to give me feedback so I can grow. You say that to your people, I would be hard-pressed to think you wouldn't get more responses. Don't you think, Gina?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
especially when you're sincere and authentic. Now, if you still don't get any, then you need to start having those one-on-one meetings like Liam is having. and figure out what the attitudinal barriers are between you and your people. Next.
Had somebody just chat in.
Chat in. Chatting in.
I'm assuming my new leadership role on Monday.
Ooh.
In open-ended,
Well, hold on. We wish you congratulations or condolences. We're not exactly sure, but wish you congratulations. Go ahead.
In open-ended one-on-one, what are good icebreakers to solicit meaningful information, and get a meaningful conversation going? I'm coming from another department. They know me, but not as a leader who knows their operations inside and out.
Excellent, excellent. And it's excellent that you're already thinking in terms of, I'm going to listen. So here's the thing. When I post that video on performance, I'm going to also post a handout. In that handout is a survey. Now, if you don't want to take the time to look through it all, look through all that material, just send me an email directly and I'll send you the survey. Because the survey is a perfect icebreaker. The survey is 10 questions, and you don't have to use all 10, but it's basically, hey, I'm new to the department, tell me about you. And the questions are, some of them you've heard before. Who is your best boss and why? Who is your worst boss and why? You don't need to tell me the name, just tell me the why. How do you want to be managed? What motivates you? What's your biggest workplace pet peeve? Just take 2 or 3 of those questions, and it's a perfect icebreaker. Now, you can, depending on the work group you're with, you can either have them fill it out or send it to you in an email, and then that's the perfect entry point for the conversation. What am I trying to do with that little survey? What I'm trying to do as a new leader, I'm trying to get to know you quicker. I'm trying to let you give me insight on how you want to be led and how you want to be managed. It also sends a strong message of how I'm going to run things around here. Now, you're already on the track because you're thinking about it. I'm going to have these one-on-ones. Perfect. I'm going to do more listening than talking. Perfect. But what it sounds like you might have a stumbling with is, what do I say or what questions do I ask? Those questions that I just articulated are great openers. Of course, you're going to say, hey, how long have you been here? What do you like about your job? What don't you like? But what's your pet peeves around here? Your best boss, what did you admire most and what made him a great boss? Your worst boss, what made him so horrible? Remembering that always be the first one, never be the second. How do you like to be managed? That gives you keen insight. What motivates you? Keen insight, man. And when you ask those questions at the beginning of your tenure and you write down the answers, you are going to have a quick snapshot of what you're walking into and what you're dealing with. But how did you do it? You did it through building relationship. And they're going to, and especially if you're sincere, when they walk out of the meeting, they're going to be like, wow, this guy really wants to know me. He really wants to understand me. Remember, as the agent of change, nothing more powerful than feeling understood. Nothing more powerful than feeling understood. And when I feel understood, I'm more open to you leading me. Stop, listen to that. That's so important, man. I mean, we're watching the whole thing play out, aren't we? People not trusting the process, people saying they don't feel understood, right? When a person doesn't feel understood, they get freaky deaky, man. They get freaky deaky when they don't feel understood. And that's not, again, I'm not making a commentary. It's just a very overt example. And I think a lot of it is people and understanding. Why do employees sit like this and never say a word in a meeting? Because they don't think the guy that's talking understands what's going on in their everyday existence. When they feel understood, they do this. Not in every department, Gina, not in every department, but isn't it amazing how many times people say to us, oh, the frontline people aren't going to go for this training.
Yeah.
All the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Frontline people are not going to go for this training.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, we have the highest levels of participation most of the time from our frontline people.
Yep.
And I don't know what it is, except I get emails saying, Ian, you really understand this. Or Ian, you really know what's going on. That's not to toot our horn, that's just to give an example of when somebody feels understood. I don't even know what the question was.
It was, they're coming into a new...
Oh yeah, that's right, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, went on the tangent. Little ADD moment there. So, if you can have those people walk out of those one-on-ones feeling more understood, you've made a quantum leap towards them giving permission to you to lead them. Listen to that. Them giving permission to you to lead them. Them giving permission to you to lead them. When I feel like you understand me, I give you permission to lead me, or at least there's a greater likelihood of it. So perfect idea with the one-on-ones. Send me a note if you want me to just send you that survey questions, which you can modify. You can either send them out to the people and then have them bring them, send them out to the people and then have them send them to you before the meeting, or have them bring them to the meeting. Or you could just use the questions as the basis of your meeting. That's up to you. For everyone else, it'll be in that handout that I post next week along with that coaching performance video. Next.
I have a text. Hold
on for a second. They're asking a lot more questions this time.
Yeah.
The directors are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very good.
They're getting involved.
Yeah.
I have an employee that has a hard time meeting deadlines. They know the urgency and they know the expectations. How should I move forward?
Okay. You got to be a good doctor. You got to be a good doctor. Now, as I said a moment ago, we're going to have a video that really unpacks performance coaching and gives you a methodology or a process for that is, frankly, on a side note, is bulletproof on a grievance if followed. I literally give you a flow chart. Those that have used it, and many have said it's never failed at a grievance. Anyways, so you got to be a good doctor. So my point is, much of what I'm going to talk about is in that video. I'll give you a high-level answer. If you want more detail, go to that video. So you got this person that you have checked and understands the expectations. They have the tools to do the work, but they're not meeting deadlines. Then you got to be a good doctor. And you got to figure out what the attitudinal barrier is to the performance issue. I'll give you an example out of my own situation. I had been asked to be a mentor by a local high school student for their senior project. I helped a kid a year ago, a kid who went to MIT, having nothing to do with me, but a kid who went to MIT was like, why would he pick me? It's like the stupidest thing I've ever heard. This kid going to MIT, but he picks me. Bad choice, brother, bad choice. Anyway, so then after I helped that kid, it started spreading around the school, hey, ask this guy, he'll help you. So I got asked. And I was supposed to turn a sheet of paper in. I was supposed to turn a sheet of paper in. And I missed the deadline. And I missed the deadline, and I missed the deadline, I missed the deadline, I missed the deadline. Till 2 days ago, the teacher sent me a note saying, if you don't send this in, this girl's gonna fail. So I sent it in immediately. And I went back and I thought to myself, why did I miss that deadline? And you know what it was? I needed to fill out a piece of paper. What? So what? Follow me. I had to fill out the piece of paper, which meant then I would have to scan it in, and then I would either have to scan it in and send it via electronic fax, or I'd have to email it. And all of those steps just seemed so cumbersome to me, I didn't want to do it. Now, frankly, once it was told to me that I had to have it in or the girl was going to fail, I had it done in literally 15 minutes. So what was my attitudinal barrier? My attitudinal barrier was I thought it was going to be too much work. And I kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. Do not go to screen with Gina, because she's going to say, same with everything else I ask him to do. Isn't it great when you have husband and wife up here? Do not go to her, Jeff.
Good choice.
Good
dear.
choice, yeah. So my point is, if someone had been managing me or coaching me, all they had to do was ask me a couple of questions and they would have immediately seen what the barrier was. If they were a good doctor. Just yelling at me wouldn't have done it, because that, unless I was in fear of my life, I wasn't going to go through all those steps, because they were just a pain in the ass for me. Because my printer scanner isn't working, so I would have had to go somewhere to get my printer scanner to work, and I'm not doing it. My point in telling you that story is this. If I want to coach performance, then one of the traits of someone who's good at it is they're a good doctor. And they're able to ask open-ended questions to get to the attitudinal barrier that's preventing the performance. Now, side note, pull up above the conversation really quick. I listened to the question. He said they know the expectations and they have the ability to do the task. Isn't that what they said?
They said they know the expectations, but still struggle to meet deadlines.
So then it's either one of two things. If they know the expectation, it's one of two things. Either one, they don't have the tools to do the work, and that's as simple as going and watching the work and seeing if they either have the physical tools, the capacity on their own, or they have the wherewithal, they have the tangible tools. Or it's they think they have a choice. In my specific instance, why did I not do it? Because I thought I had a choice. And I kept putting it off and putting it off. So the good doctor would ask the open-ended questions to try to figure out what the attitudinal barrier is and then remove the attitudinal barrier. Either by saying, well, Ian, just type it up, send it to me, and I'll fax it out. If Gina would have said that, it would have been on time. Just kidding.
Well, coincidentally,
yes.
Somebody just chatted in. I have that exact same employee. They're from 2 different regions, by the way.
Okay.
Who can't meet deadlines, and his previous manager, who was very good, ended up taking on some of that employee's duties in order to make those deadlines. I don't want to enable that too much, but I think that employee has grown to expect that from a manager.
Yeah, that's bad. That's a bad deal. So pulling this out of my personal example that I tried to use that might have been a poor example because of the conversation that will happen after this broadcast. But anyways, we can't enable people by doing things for them, but we may need to coach them and train them to be able to do the task. 3 reasons why employees don't perform. And I want you to watch that video next week, the 2 people that have made these comments. 3 reasons why employees don't perform. Reason number 1, they don't know the expectations. Reason number 2, they think, they don't have the tools or the training. Reason number 3, they think they have a choice. All 3 of those are the leader's responsibility. Poor performance is ultimately their responsibility, but it's my responsibility to clarify expectations and check for understanding. It's my responsibility to hire the right person or provide the tools or the training to make sure that they can do the task. And 3, it's my responsibility to clarify what they have a choice in and what they do not have a choice in. Well, I don't get that. Well, I'll use safety. You know, there's some things that employees have a choice in, and there's other things that they don't have a choice in when it comes to safety. We put cones here. We wear this thing. We put this on. We do this sequence of tasks, period. That's how we do it. Don't have a choice. But other things they do have a choice in. And sometimes employees get those 2 things confused. And if you're one of those people out there that thinks that your employee is just doing it bad to do it bad, I just don't think people get in their cars in the morning, start them up and say, I'm going to do a crappy job at work today. I don't think so. And if it does happen, it's very rare. So in that specific instance where the previous manager was doing the work because it was easier than coaching, identifying which one of those 3 problems it was or the root cause, and then walking them through a definite process for improvement. Yeah, you're stuck now. Because they look to you and say, hey, aren't you going to do the work for me? And unfortunately, you're going to have one of those courageous conversations that we just mentioned a moment ago and look and say, no, unfortunately, I'm not going to do the work for you, but I am going to identify the reason why you're struggling with it, and I'm going to coach you through it. If I determine that you're just choosing not to do it because you've gotten used to somebody else doing it and you are capable of doing it, then guess what? Unfortunately, that's not going to work anymore. I love you. I think you're great. But in this specific instance, that's not going to work anymore. Let's get back on track. I don't want to hijack the balance of the conversation, but I'm telling you, everybody watch that video. Well, how come you didn't give it to us before? Well, I don't, because the emerging leaders deal with a lot more of, mid-level leaders deal with a lot more of personnel issues than maybe executive leaders. And so I don't, but I don't talk about it in the broadcast, but I do post it. So if this is really resonating with you and you need some tools for coaching individual performance of your direct reports or coaching group performance, and I implore you, check that video out. We'll have it posted at the beginning of the week. I think it's called Coaching Effective Performance Management, and it has that entry point questionnaire to better understand employees. It talks about some other things, and it talks specifically about a process, and I literally give you a flow chart of walking people through and improving their performance. And on a side note, before you get to progressive discipline. So it's a tool to be used before you get to your formal HR progressive discipline process. I hear your phone going crazy over there. Give me another one.
What if your employee is always late for meetings or make excuses on why they're late?
Okay, so let's talk about that. Root cause. Lateness is a manifestation of a deeper disease. Mr. Toyota said that there was always that it sometimes would take up to 5 whys, 5 whys, to find the root cause of the problem. So if you have an employee that's always late, you need to sit down and have that chat, 80% listening, 20% talking, and find out why they're late, the root cause. Why are you late? Oh, well, my car. Well, why your car? Well, I was up late last night. Why are you up late? Well, I was at the bar watching the Thursday night football game. Why are you doing that? Because my life is a wreck and my wife is divorcing me. Oh. When I ask those whys, I get to the root cause. So as far as a person being late, that conversation, I'm asking the open-ended questions. Well, so are you saying, Ian, because he's going through a divorce and he goes and gets drunk on Thursday night to watch a football game, he's okay to be late? I didn't say that. Oh, no, I did not say that. I'm just trying to find the root cause. Because maybe the root cause is this. I'm sorry I'm late, but I got to drop my kid off at 8 o'clock because the daycare says that I can only drop him off 10 minutes before, and it starts at 8:10. And if I drop him off any earlier, there's no one there to watch him. Well, you got to be here at work at 8:15. Yeah, I know, but I can't drop off my kid any earlier than that. Well, you'll never get here on time. I know. So then what are you going to do? Well, if it was me and if I had the luxury, I'd just move their start time to 8:30. And I bet you they'd never be late again. Now, if you didn't have that luxury, you'd have to look at other options. My point is, Mr. Toyota was right. You got to ask those whys to get to the root cause. Otherwise, don't be late. Don't be late. Don't be late. It might work for the first week, but then eventually they're going to be late again because you never address the root cause. Now, once I've determined what the root cause is, then it's pretty simple. Here's the current behavior you're exhibiting. Here's the preferred behavior. Here's the time frame I'm giving you to move to that preferred behavior. How can and what's your plan? I would say, okay, tell me what your plan is to not be late anymore. And then I'd say, how do you want me to support you in that? And then I'd say to them, what do you want the consequences to be if you're late again? Yeah, watch it now. Let's walk through it. And this is in that video. Let's walk through it again. Here's the preferred behavior. Here's your current behavior. Tell me what your plan is to move from here to there. Tell me the time frame that you think you can accomplish that. And if it's acceptable to me, I go with it. If it's not, I tell them, nope, that won't work. Shorten it up. Like, you can't tell jokes like that ever again. It's different than, okay, I'm going to give you a week to work that out. Once they've told you their plan, what's your plan? I want to hear your plan. I'm going to try harder. That's not a plan. I'm going to try harder is not a plan. What's your plan? What behaviors are you going to do different to get a different result? And I would even jot those down. A little mutually agreed upon plan. And then I say this, what do you want my role to be? I don't need anything from you. Okay. I'm just offering. I'm here to help you. I don't need nothing from you. Okay. And Bob, what should the consequences be if you're late again? That confrontation doesn't have to be contentious. It doesn't have to be filled with venom and anger and It's just, hey, can't be late. It's bad for everybody, you, me, everyone else. So we got to get you on time. Now let's figure out what the cause of that is. Here's the preferred behavior. You need to be here at this time. What's going to be our plan to get that fixed? What's going to be the time frame for the implementation of that plan? What do you want my role to be in the plan? And what's the consequences of the plan not coming to fruition with a positive outcome? Now, all of a sudden, who's this on? Who's this on now, Jeff? It's on them. It's all on them. It's on them. All right, I think that answers the question.
I think so too.
It's on the video. Watch that video. Go.
Yeah.
We only got like 3 or 4 minutes left.
We don't have anything right now.
We don't have more questions?
No.
Well, great. I have 3 minutes to talk about what I wanted to talk about. Well, what I want to talk about, and I'm not going to have time to talk about, I'll post it in a video.
Well, we're here for them.
No, I agree with you. No, I know.
Okay.
Trust me, I'm not upset. I think it's great. And it also gives me some insight.
Yeah.
It gives me some insight that a dialogue about how do I expand my sphere of influence in the community might not be as relevant to you as how do I my direct reports and getting them in alignment with where we're going. So that's good feedback for me. But what I was going to talk about is how do I expand my sphere of influence in the community? Those of you that are the director or the deputy director, you are significant leaders in your community. Oh, people in town might not know you, but because of what you oversee, the infrastructure of the community, because of your role in emergency management, because of the size of your budget in relationship to the rest of the community, and whether you're in Anaheim or you're in Tampa or you're in Alder Flats, Alberta, it's a town of, the Public Works Department is one guy. Relative to his community, though, his budget is bigger than most things in town. So, by the very fact of everything I just said, you're a leader. Big time leader. Now, I'm not saying everybody knows you in town. I'm not saying everybody listens to you. But I am saying you're a leader. So, how do you expand your sphere of influence? Oh, you're talking about networking, right? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm talking about the dilemma that public works departments and we as a sector face all across North America and beyond. How do we get people of influence to understand the valuable, critical, and vital nature, essential service that public works is, so that it gets the appropriate resources necessary to fulfill that important work? We're not going to have, in the next 3 minutes, an opportunity for me to share that with you. But I will share it with you because I think it's critical that you know how to get out in the community and marshal human capital around the importance and value of who you are and what you are. It's called 100 Cups of Coffee. So keep your eyes and ears open for 100 Cups of Coffee conversation, okay?
We just had another chat in.
Okay.
It is...
I gave a look like I was disappointed in that. That was bad. I'm not
bad.
disappointed. I'm not disappointed. I'm excited, but I wanted to finish the thought. But my thought isn't as important as your question. Go.
No, I love all these questions. This is
great.
great. I am new in my leadership position and now manage employees that were fellow employees. Can you give me any advice for managing those who were my peers in the past?
Yeah, number one, let me just say this. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because you're their buddy. You're their pal. You're the guy we used to know. Come on, or the gal, either way. You're the guy or gal we used to know. Hey, what are you doing? What? All of a sudden you're holding me accountable? Hey, what's wrong with you, man? You've changed. You just sure got full of yourself, man. All that stuff. So what's the key? I think you follow the same process that I just mentioned a moment ago. That one, you look at everybody and say, and I would do it one-on-one, hey, good, bad, right, or wrong, I'm in a position of authority now. I'm a supervisor. But how I supervise you in this leadership role, it might be different than we've done in the past. I want to hear your input. I want to hear your feedback. I'm going to try to get your permission to lead you because you respect me and you trust me. And that's the stance or the approach that I would take. You're going to have some in the group that are going to be for you. You're going to have some in the group that are going to be against you. What you have to do is manage all of them or lead all of them through a trusting approach. So I would have those same one-on-ones. I would have the same one-on-ones. Just talk with them. Hey, now that I'm supervising this thing, what was frustrating you around here? Now that I'm supervising this thing, What were your pet peeves? Now that I'm supervising this thing, how would you like to be led? Just get that feedback because the relationship has changed. And by having that meeting, you know what you do, Gina? By having that meeting, you send a strong message that the relationship has changed.
Yeah.
You don't have to say, I'm the boss now. All you have to do is this. Hey, let's have a chat. I'd like to hear from you. Only bosses do that kind of stuff. So you don't have to flash your title. You don't have to get up and brag. You don't have to do it. You just have a meeting and listen. But you'll still get the same message across. You'll even get it across more powerfully that I'm in charge now. New sheriff in town. But maybe the way this sheriff is doing it is different than the sheriffs of the past. So I would have those one-on-one meetings. I would listen to what they have to say, as well as I offer to the other gentleman or the other lady. If you want me to send you that little survey and don't want to dig through the handout next week, then just send me a note and I'll send it to you, and I'll send you some other thoughts as well. It is tough. It is tough when you're elevated in leadership to lead your peers. It's always better for directors. It's always better to take a guy or a gal or a guy, have them go lead somewhere else, and then bring them back to the group they used to work with. That's always preferred, in my opinion, or ideal, in my opinion. But you don't always have that luxury. You don't always have that luxury. It is a tough road to hoe, Gina, to lead people all of a sudden you were hanging out with.
Former friends, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Peers,
Your
friends, pals, buddies. All right, anything else?
Nope.
Did you get one more?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Hey, lively. That was lively.
Yeah.
Good questions. And just on a side note, if we don't get to your question or you weren't satisfied with the extent of my answer, I didn't say you weren't satisfied with my answer. But if you weren't satisfied with the depth or breadth of my answer, or I didn't answer it to your satisfaction, the amount of information I gave wasn't to your satisfaction, email me. Now, if you weren't happy with my answer in the sense of you didn't agree, you can email me too. But I'm just going to tell you to kiss my butt and send it back. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm just kidding. Hey, thank you. Oh, that was the last thing I wanted to say. You know, the success or failure of this in a department is usually based on the participation level of an executive leader. When the director is fully engaged, everyone else gets fully engaged. When the deputy directors are fully engaged, everybody else gets fully engaged. Or when the leader of the work group that's going through it is fully engaged, everybody else is fully engaged. We've had some departments that have had literally transformational change, and the number one consistent factor in all of them, they've been big, they've been small, the level of participation by the executive leadership team. When the executive leadership team is going through it, talking about it in the couple weeks between us getting together, asking questions of others and showing their assignment, telling everybody what their commitment is, when they're leading like that, role modeling, the thing takes off like a rocket. When they're not, and I heard today, didn't we, Gina?
Yes, we
heard
did.
today that wasn't happening in a couple of your departments. Or at least that was the perception. I don't know if it's reality or perception, but the perception from mid-level leaders was, my bosses aren't doing this. So, just a caution to everybody, and an encouragement as well. Thank you for all you do. Stay safe this weekend. If you're in an area where there's snow, and you got guys and gals out in plows, stay safe. And we thank you for all that you do. Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Hold on.